She stood in front of my porch, hands on her hips, screaming like she owned the entire neighborhood. You think you can blast music at midnight and get away with it? Karen yelled so loud even the dogs went quiet. I opened my door halfway, calm but tired. Karen, I wasn't even home last night, I said slowly. But she smirked, holding up a paper with the HOA logo printed on it. Probably something she made herself. This is an official notice, she snapped. You're fined for violating community peace rules. Behind her, a few neighbors peeked out their windows. It was embarrassing standing there like a criminal when I'd literally spent the whole night 2 towns away visiting my sister. She didn't want to hear it. I have witnesses, she barked. I heard the music myself. Her confidence was ridiculous. I almost laughed, but I knew better. Karen didn't joke around. She thrived on control. I folded my arms. All right, if you're that sure, let's call the cops. They'll check. Her eyes widened just a little, like she didn't expect me to challenge her, but she quickly nodded. Fine, let's do it. 15 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. Officer Miller stepped out, someone I actually knew from the fire department charity events. He greeted me with a polite nod, then turned to Karen. Ma'am, you said there was loud music last night? Karen jumped in before I could even speak. Yes. Around 11:30 p.m. I saw him here. He was in his driveway yelling with his friends. She pointed at me like she'd solved a crime. I just stared at her, letting her dig her own hole. Then I said quietly, Officer, can you check something for me? My security system records everything. You'll see who was actually here. Karen rolled her eyes. Oh, please, like you have proof. But when the officer took out his tablet and I logged into my camera feed, her smirk slowly vanished. The timestamp read 11:30 p.m., but the footage showed an empty driveway, lights off, not a single car. Then suddenly the camera caught something else. Karen, standing in my yard. Her mouth dropped open as the officer froze the video. Ma'am, he said carefully, that looks like you. Her face turned pale. She stuttered, That's not me. I was just walking my dog. The officer raised an eyebrow. At 11:30 p.m. on his property? And in that moment, everyone watching from their windows saw exactly who the real problem was. Karen's confidence cracked, but she tried to recover fast. This is ridiculous, she shouted, waving her hands in the air. That video doesn't prove anything. Officer Miller didn't even blink. It shows you on his property, ma'am, and it clearly records no noise coming from this house. I'm going to need you to explain that. Karen crossed her arms and scoffed. Maybe the system glitched. You people always believe these fake tech things. I heard him. She looked around, hoping one of the neighbors would back her up, but everyone stayed quiet. They'd all had their own run-ins with her before. I took a slow breath, keeping my tone calm. Actually, officer, if you go back a little earlier in the footage, you'll see something else. He scrubbed back about 20 minutes. The camera view showed Karen standing at the edge of my lawn again, this time holding something small and shiny in her hand. She bent down near my porch, glanced around, and then hurried off. The officer paused. What is she doing there? My heart pounded. That's what I want to know, I said. Karen's voice trembled. That's not what it looks like. The officer looked at her, firm now. It looks like you're placing something on his property. He turned to me. Would you like to check what she might have left there? We walked to the edge of the porch, and sure enough, tucked behind the flower pot was a small Bluetooth speaker. Still blinking, Karen froze. The officer picked it up, hit play, and loud party music blasted out. The same sound she had claimed to hear last night. Karen took a step back, realizing she'd been caught. I was just trying to prove a point, she stammered. The officer frowned. By planting fake evidence? I didn't say a word. I just looked at her, and for the first time, she couldn't look back. Officer Miller sighed and radioed something in. Ma'am, you need to stay right here. Karen's voice cracked. Wait, are you serious? I'm part of the HOA. You can't do this to me. He turned to her calmly. No one is above the law, ma'am. Not even the HOA. Karen's voice was trembling now, but she was still trying to act in control. You're making a mistake, officer. I was only doing what's right for the community. Officer Miller didn't even look at her. Right for the community? He repeated, holding up the Bluetooth speaker. You planted fake noise to find your neighbor and then lied about it. That's not community service, that's harassment. Her jaw clenched. You don't understand, he's always breaking rules. His grass, his lights, his... I cut her off softly. My grass is trimmed, my lights are solar, and my driveway's cleaner than the HOA office itself. A few neighbors laughed quietly from across the street. Karen's face turned red. The officer asked me, "Sir, would you like to file a report?" I looked at Karen, still shaking, still glaring at me like she couldn't believe she'd lost. "Not yet," I said. "But I do want this incident logged with HOA headquarters. She's been crossing lines for months." Karen snapped, "You can't do that. I am the HOA president." That made the officer turn fully toward her. "Not anymore, you're not, at least not after this." She froze. "What do you mean?" Officer Miller pulled out his phone, showing her a message. "The board already saw the footage you helped provide. They've called an emergency vote to remove you. I was told to inform you before I arrived." Her lips parted. She looked around helplessly as neighbors stepped closer, whispering, recording, even smiling a bit. For the first time, Karen had no words. I looked at her and said quietly, "You know, Karen, sometimes silence is louder than any noise." She glared, tears of anger forming in her eyes. "You think you've won?" I smiled faintly. "No, I just proved you wrong." The officer nodded toward his car. "Ma'am, I'll need you to come down for questioning." Karen took a shaky breath, muttered something under her breath, and slowly followed him. The sound of her heels clicking on the pavement was the only thing breaking the quiet. As the police car drove away, a few neighbors clapped lightly. One of them called out, "About time someone stood up to her." I smiled, but I wasn't celebrating yet, because deep down I knew Karen wasn't the type to give up that easily. 2 days passed quietly, too quietly. For the first time in months, I could step outside without Karen's constant nagging about community standards. But something in me didn't feel right. Karen wasn't the kind of person who vanished without a fight. That evening, I got my answer. A white envelope was taped to my door with HOA legal action notice stamped on it in red. No signature, no return address. I opened it carefully and my stomach dropped. It claimed that I was being sued for defamation and property damage. Property damage? I laughed out loud. She's really doing this. I drove straight to the HOA office the next morning, but the receptionist looked nervous when she saw me. "Sir, Mrs. Karen isn't with the board anymore," she said softly. "But she's still around. She's been calling members threatening to sue anyone who speaks against her." I nodded slowly. "Figures." As I turned to leave, the receptionist hesitated. "Oh, and she left this file behind. She said it was about you." I took the file home, dropped it on my kitchen counter, and opened it. Inside were printed photos of me, walking my dog, mowing the lawn, even taking out the trash. Every photo was time-stamped, labeled HOA violation evidence. "She's been spying on me," I muttered under my breath. That night, around 9:45, I noticed headlights flashing outside. A truck idled near my driveway. I stepped out with my phone camera rolling. A man in a reflective vest was about to attach a tow hook to my pickup. "Hey," I called out. "What do you think you're doing?" He barely looked up. "Got a call from the HOA. Said this vehicle's parked illegally." I showed him my property line. "Buddy, this is my own driveway." "You sure you got the right address?" He frowned, double-checked the form on his clipboard, and froze. The HOA address on the form wasn't real. It was handwritten. And at the bottom, in bold ink, was Karen's name. Before I could say another word, flashing lights appeared at the corner. Officer Miller again. He got out, looked at the tow driver, then at me. "You too?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "Yeah, she's back." He sighed, looking toward the shadows across the street. "She never really left." "Did she?" Just then, something caught my eye. A car parked halfway down the road. And inside I saw a familiar silhouette watching us. Karen, her eyes locked on mine through the